Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur-militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
It's not such a common thing nowadays that people come to hear lectures. Most entertainment nowadays is through some medium, TV, computer, something like that. A lecture means that there's an appeal to the intelligence. And intelligence in the modern age is something used to, it's principally seen as something to manipulate the material energy. That use our intelligence to work out different ways to exploit the resources of material nature so that we can have what is presumed to be a better life. This lecture that is about to take, that's just beginning, is about self-improvement. That after hearing this, if you are willing to accept what is being said, then you should have some clue or some direction how to be a better person. This requires application of intelligence. Often it's thought that intelligence means, well, I shouldn't listen to anyone, I'll just work everything out by myself. So why should I listen to anyone? I'm as smart as anyone else. Such an attitude is not a sign of intelligence, but of proud foolishness. So you may think, well, who am I to speak about being proud? I'm sitting above all of you and speaking to you. It looks like I'm very proud. And actually, pride is foolishness. Pride means to think, I am very big. But it doesn't matter how big anyone is, we're all very small. Who is big in this world? In Czech Republic, the president of this big man, I must admit, I don't know his name, but that doesn't make him any smaller because I don't know the names of the presidents of most countries. Actually, I don't read the newspaper very often. The name of a big person, supposedly big person in the world I know is Bill Gates, George Bush, these are all big people. Big brain was Einstein, now Stephen Hawking is the big scientific brain in the world. However big we are, we're all very small. That is intelligent to consider. That however big we may seem to be, at best we're a slightly bigger fish in a small pond. So real intelligence can begin when one is humble and has the humility to consider that I'm not very important. Practically everything people are doing in the world is to promote their own self-importance. The first consideration is survival, eating, sleeping, having sex, defending. And when we have those animal propensities more or less cared for, then we try to promote ourselves as something very big. Real philosophy, or intelligent examination of our existential position means that we should see that we're very small. So again, then why am I sitting above you? Because the knowledge that I am deputed to deliver is great. And knowledge, like water, flows down. We can get knowledge to a very limited extent simply by our own endeavors. But anyone who wants to learn anything, the best thing he can do is go to someone who knows. There's a narration in the Vedic literature of some Brahmanas by caste. They were forest sages, and they visited one king for the purpose of learning one specific type of knowledge from him. They knew that he knew it, and they didn't. So they wanted one specific type of knowledge they wanted to. So they visited his court, and according to custom, the king sat them above him. Because in Vedic culture, respect is given to persons who have knowledge and renunciation. And the Brahmana caste is supposed to have knowledge and renunciation. So the king, who was of a lower caste, he sat them above him. And as is the culture, he asked them, how can I serve you? So they asked that, you explain to us this kind of knowledge. I think it was Agneya Vidya, whatever it may be, I can't remember. So he said, well, I can give you land, I can give you cows, there's so many things I can give you, but I can't give you that. Please forgive me for that, and you've come a long way, please rest in the palace tonight, and see you in the morning. So they went to their lodging, and they discussed among themselves, why did he refuse to tell us? He was not rude or inhospitable to us. He offered us proper respect. But he refused to teach us the knowledge that we came to learn from him. So then they considered that he could not give the knowledge. Why he had refused is because they were sitting above him. And to receive knowledge, one has to take a lower position. One has to have the humility to respect the teacher and understand that to receive this knowledge, I have to submit my intelligence to this person. This applies in all fields of learning, but especially in learning matters which are subtle, and in learning of matters which are beyond our present scope of thinking altogether. So the next day they went back and they sat below him and they asked to learn if he could teach, and he agreed. Although in general dealings he respected them as Brahmins, at the time of teaching he had to take the position of teacher and correct them when they misunderstood. They would have to submissively inquire from him points that needed clarification. So as I was saying, for any subtle, especially for subtle subject matter, or for that which requires that our whole way of thinking has to be expanded or adjusted, we need someone to explain that to us. I often remember how at school, when calculus was first introduced to us. Calculus in mathematics class. That's probably the same word in Czech. Algebra, trigonometry, geometry, calculus. It's a branch of mathematics. The word must be there. I'm sure Czech people have calculus too. Would someone have any engineers here? You got the word? Is it? No. I thought they used the same Latin-based word. Oh, really, it's a Greek word. When the teacher first introduced it, he wrote it, he put a squiggle on the board, and we're all bewildered, what's all this? And he started to explain it, and we didn't understand. But we had confidence that he understood, and what he was teaching, even though it's beyond our present understanding, it is something real and useful and tangible, and he can explain it to us so that we can also understand this and apply it in our lives. So that's also faith and humility, isn't it? We talk about the faith and humility to hear from a guru and imbibe spiritual knowledge. And we may protest that, why? It sounds demeaning. But just from that example, you can understand that to learn any higher knowledge, it requires faith and humility. And with that faith and humility, one can be guided to higher and higher levels of understanding. I was just giving an example in the field of mathematics, which is it's subtle and often may appear to be mystical. So what to speak of spiritual knowledge? So to acquire spiritual knowledge, first of all, one has to have the faith that there's something there which is real, which is worth understanding. It's it's not, as some people would claim, a childish idea to accept that there is tangible spiritual knowledge. The very fact of our dissatisfaction in material life suggests that there is another mode of life beyond that which is limited by birth, death, old age and disease. An objective appraisement of material existence or life in this world is that we see birth, we see death, and in between there's the suffering of old age and disease. So some people say, well, this is very pessimistic. Why don't you just enjoy yourself? It's not pessimistic, it's realistic. However much we may drink Coca-Cola and check beer and enjoy ourselves, we have to die at some point. We have to suffer old age, we have to suffer disease. And as described in Bhagavad Gita, we have to suffer rebirth. So materialistic people make a lot of hype about enjoyment. Hype it means they falsely advertising. Or they make a lot of big false advertisement. They make a lot of hype about everything. That's how they sell everything. They say Coca-Cola. No one would ever buy Coca-Cola unless they spend billions of dollars advertising it, because what's so great about Coca-Cola? So everything is advertised. There's a huge advertising industry, advertising that buy this, buy that, and your life will be better. But practically speaking, for all this hype of how great modern life is with all the facilities for enjoying ourselves, people are more miserable and mentally disturbed than at any time in known history. I was just a few days ago in Switzerland. I was speaking to a nurse she works in an old age home, or whatever euphemistic term they use nowadays. Senior citizens paradise, or whatever they call it nowadays. They're always trying to change the words to make things sound better. I don't know if this came in Czech, but spastics became physically handicapped, and now they're physically challenged. They don't talk about short people, now they say vertically challenged. Anyway, she was telling me that 90% of the Swiss people, they suffer from senility and old age. So drink Coca-Cola while you can, folks, because soon you're going to be locked up in a home. Sorry, in a paradise. So considering the realities of the miseries of material existence, Lord Krishna, the greatest authority on spiritual knowledge, has stated, Labdva sudur labamidang bhavusambhavante manusham artadam anityam api hira turanam yatetana patedana mrityayava mishrayasaya vishaya khalu sarvatasyat. He says that the human form of life is very valuable. This is based on the understanding that we are eternal spiritual beings who in material existence accept different bodies in different species of life. And, the human being of today can be the ant of tomorrow, and the ant or frog or dog or hog of today can be the human being tomorrow. But as we are changing from body to body to body, what it means is that actually we're not the body at all. If I say, I am, and then we follow it with a description of our bodily matrix, or the matrix based on our bodily identification, that is inaccurate. According to bodily identification, I have such and such a name, I'm a citizen of such and such a country, I'm so many years old, and thin or fat or tall or short or black or white or whatever. But that's not really me. It's only temporarily what I think I am. There's a narration in the Vedic literature that one king from earth went to the planet of Lord Brahma, which is the highest planet in the universe. And as suggested by relativity theory, the time scales work differently there in a different part of the universe. So he had the facility of interplanetary travel, and he went to the planet of Lord Brahma to ask him about who he thought would be a suitable husband for his daughter. When he arrived there, Brahma was otherwise engaged and he had to wait some minutes to see him. And when he explained the matter to Lord Brahma simply laughed. He said, in the few minutes that you've been here, all the persons who you were thinking as possible husbands for your daughter have died, their names have been forgotten, and even 100 and 1,000 generations of their descendants have also died and become forgotten. So, if I say, I am, point at this, and Lord Brahma sneezes and he'll look at you, you turn around and look, and you've already been through another 1,000 bodies in the time it takes him to sneeze. So it is meaningless to identify ourselves with these bodies. Although we feel, I need to feed it, it's cold, I need some warm clothing, but ultimately we have no relationship with it. However, in that verse I was quoting, Lord Krishna says, we have now attained human life, which is rare, because there are so many other species of life. And sometimes very rarely one may get a human birth, otherwise there's dog birth, cat birth, giraffe birth, hippopotamus birth, camel birth, snake birth. So human life is attained after many births. It's also brief. That, like I was saying, in Lord Brahma's sneezing, then you may go through many births, because his time scale is different to ours. However, although temporary, it is valuable, inasmuch as in human birth you can come and listen to a lecture like this. You can also bring your dog. I don't know if they'll allow it in. Theoretically, you could bring your dog. But the dog isn't going to understand anything. And actually, even human beings whose intelligence is on the level of the dog, they also can't understand. Therefore, in this verse, Lord Krishna says, Dhira, one whose intelligence is very calm, composed, introspective and controlled, they can begin to understand these topics. They can understand that I have to utilize this human form of life properly. If presented with the understanding that we are not the body, that we are spirit beyond the body, they can understand this. And others will say, why? Let's get back to the pub or the bar. Only wasting our time here. So one who is sober means not drunk, and it also means one who has a steady manner of a steady approach to life, to grade. So he can consider what is the value of human life. It's temporary. If we live to 90 years, we think, that's a long life. But it's a flash in time. Nevertheless, there is the possibility in human life to, having understood the necessity of acting in a way that we can get free from the suffering of repeated birth and death, we can act in that manner, purify our consciousness, and thus become liberated from material existence. And if we think, well, what about enjoying myself? There's so many things I can do. Well, the first thing to consider is that this kind of sensual enjoyment, that is available in all species of life. Here in Prague, there are so many erotic shops. We couldn't help noticing them as we went around the city. But the dogs, the cats, the birds, they also have erotic life. So human life is not meant to be lived on the animalistically sensual platform, but to transcend that by understanding our spiritual existence. Now, when we speak of spiritual existence, many people presume that this is something vague and undefined and undefinable. But in Bhagavad Gita, the concise textbook of spiritual knowledge, Lord Krishna specifies the position of the soul, Jivatma, is the Sanskrit word. First of all, he differentiates the nature of the soul from that of matter. That the soul cannot be cut, dried, burned. It cannot be affected by any material conditions. And what is the position of the soul? Every person, every soul is an infinitesimal part, an infinitesimal and eternal part of Krishna, who is the Supreme Soul, as is elaborately explained in Bhagavad Gita. This knowledge is given in an introductory form in Bhagavad Gita, and in detail in other Vedic literature, specifically Srimad Bhagavatam. So this may seem like foreign terms, but what is foreign? Now someone may be born in Czech and he may think that English, Russian, and all these are all foreign languages and cultures. But then if one is born in Russia in the next life, then the one who is Czech may in one life, in the next life, he may think that Czech is a foreign language. So the language of the soul in the pure liberated state is the perfect language called Sanskrit. Sanskrit means that which is perfectly composed. It's not necessary to learn Sanskrit to apply the techniques of spiritual life which are given in Bhagavad Gita. That knowledge is explainable in all languages of the world. The basis of that knowledge is to understand that although we are presently in a certain situation, in a certain body, we don't belong in any situation, anywhere in this material world. We are meant for eternal happiness. The nature of the soul is to be happy. But we are mistakenly searching for happiness within matter. Actual happiness means on the spiritual platform of loving service to Krishna, the Supreme Soul, the supreme reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. Krishna means God, but not exactly the God who is conceptualized in the Semitic religions or Abrahamic religions. Abrahamic religions that means Judaism, Islam, Christianity. But in which God is generally conceived of as a vengeful person who there seems to be more stress on his punishing feature. Well, that's the beginning of religion, to be afraid. Don't do wrong, otherwise you'll get punished. But the full understanding of God is of His beauty, His love. He is not simply an order supplier that we go and pray that you give me this, make my life, remove the problems from my life, forgive my sins this week, and I'll see you next week, and I'll ask you to forgive some more. Love of God, love of Krishna, as described in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, is based on what we can give to Him. What can we give to God? He gives everything. If we understand what God means, it means He who gives everything. But out of love, we can offer Him some gift or some service. And out of love, He accepts that. Patram pushpam palang toyam yome bhaktya karachati tadaham bhakti pahritam ashnami paritam. Krishna says, if one out of love offers me even something as simple as leaf a leaf, a flower, some fruit, or some water, if it's offered with genuine love, then I accept it. So we are meant ultimately for our existential position as eternal spirit souls is that we are meant for eternal, loving, joyful existence in relation with Krishna. Considering the miserable condition of existence in this material world and the prospect of eternal blissful life in the spiritual world with Krishna, an intelligent person should act in this life to purify his consciousness and become transferred to the spiritual world. This is our basic proposal or presentation, and it's up to you to pursue that or not. One point to consider is that this is not just something that we made up or anyone made up, but this process of bhakti yoga or loving yoga in service to Krishna is coming down in a tradition for literally millions of years. According to modern evolutionary theory, that can't be possible because human civilization started, what's the latest figure they say? They're always changing their figures. What's the latest official figure or official opinion? 40,000 years. Civilization began 40,000 years ago. It's quite a lot more since when I was at school. Vedic literature describes civilization going back millions of years. And within advanced human society, the quest for attaining the purified consciousness for loving service to Krishna has always been central. This modern civilization is not advanced at all. It's very degraded and low class. Simply based on gorging the belly and titillating the tongue and indulging the genitals. What kind of civilization is that? Grossly, ignorantly materialistic. So if you're sick of all this, which any intelligent person should be, then please take leave or consider this alternative of genuine spiritual life in Krishna consciousness. In the name of spiritual life, there are so many bogus things. Like I was saying, mostly they think spiritual life is something very vague. You just kind of, you imagine you're God or something. Anyone who tells you that you are God or that he is God is a complete fool and a rascal, and if you're stupid, you'll be cheated by him. It's just a sign of the age that there are so many people who think they're very intelligent and they're walking around in a dream thinking, I am God. They think this is spiritual life. From time to time God has to go to the dentist. The real spiritual life begins with the humility to accept the reality that I am controlled, I'm not the controller. So, reasonable, realistic spiritual life is described in Bhagavad Gita as it is. And the Krishna conscious movement offers a realistic process by which one can make genuine spiritual advancement. One cannot make any real spiritual advancement unless one leads a purified lifestyle. So if one is to advance in Krishna consciousness, when one wants to take it up seriously, one has to follow certain principles, such as no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, that means no wanton, uncontrolled sex. Sex is allowed within marriage, and no intoxication. So these are prerequisites for entry into a genuine course of spiritual advancement. And the positive process is chanting of the holy names of Krishna. This purifies the heart of contaminations such as lust, greed, anger, envy, And in the purified heart, love of Krishna, the genuine nature of the soul, can manifest. So this is the program for self-improvement offered by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, which has been followed by many highly advanced spiritual persons for untold generations, and is potent and viable today also. So thank you for listening, and I hope you've benefited, or you feel that you've benefited from that. Any questions about this? Kindly ask me. Anyone has any question? Yeah, please. I have a question. When are you going to take this up seriously? We've come in so many years. At some point we have to stop asking questions and start doing something practical. It's good to ask questions, but like I said, we have to do something practical. Please consider. What's your question? You only ask a question. Alright, so please do something practical.
So that this human civilization could not be here millions of years ago because the Earth was not here. It must be some other planet here.
How do you know the Earth wasn't here? I don't agree. I'm not going to hit you on the head with a hammer. But just, you don't know and I don't know, at least from the how long have you been in that particular body? In other words, how old are you?
About 50 years.
So mid-cent. So our experience doesn't go back more than 50 years. So your statement that the world wasn't here so many millions of years ago is based upon what? It's based upon your guesswork or what you've heard from certain people who call themselves scientists. And no, what I'm saying is that your statement is based on what you believe, based on your guesswork or what you've heard from others. So my statement is based on scriptures which have been handed down by spiritually realized persons over what we say are millions of years. So it's a matter of faith. You haven't seen, I haven't seen. I believe the record of the scriptures, and you believe the record of, I don't know, I think even the scientists say the earth been here for millions of years. You believe something else. So ultimately it's a matter of faith. But I claim that which I have faith in has got better credentials than that which you have faith in. It means better background, it looks more reliable. Like I was saying, when I was at school, we were told that human civilization went back, I think it was 3,000 years at that time. Now we're told it's 40,000 years, according to their calculations. So they don't know, and their opinion is always changing. But the persons who, by their character and behavior, exhibit genuine spiritual advancement, these persons, over many generations, have all accepted the Vedic version that life has existed on this planet and on other planets for many millions of years. It's widely propagated in the educational system that man has descended from monkeys, but we don't accept it. If you like, you can accept it. But this idea that by chance a monkey turned into Charles Darwin, we don't see any evidence of that whatsoever. There are millions of monkeys all over the world. Maybe just a few in the zoo in Prague, but I live in India and there are plenty of monkeys, and you never saw any of them giving birth to anything resembling Charles Darwin. Alright, please chant Hare Krishna. It will help you to think more clearly. If you think you already know everything, then just by your own intelligence, then you're in a lot of trouble like everyone else in the world.
Yes, that
We may think ourselves, well, I'm an independent thinker, we may think. But there's not much use in just being an independent thinker. It's better to get knowledge from those who actually know. If we perceive that everyone in the world is on the wrong course, okay, that's good. But if we think we can independently, by just exercising our own intelligence, find out the right path, then that is also foolishness. Real intelligence begins with humility. The humility to understand that my intelligence is highly limited, and to understand reality I need guidance. Alright, I'll finish there.